Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm on my way back home to Arizona. Just leaving, I think it just passed through Denver. So I got a little bit of a ways to go, still just got on the road. But it was day 3 of the Shaw Classic and the second day of the Strongest Man on Earth. So it was the last 4 events. And like I mentioned on my last update, I did that workout Saturday night with Mitchell Hooper and a bunch of fans there at the Fit Gym in Loveland. So I didn't get a lot of sleep, and I got up early and got to the event center, and it was just a pretty busy, jam-packed day. Only kind of got a short break to go have some lunch, and then I was up pretty late, so I'm a little exhausted. I was going to start driving home like I normally do, a couple hours just to get on the road, and then find a place to pull over and nap or sleep or whatever. So instead, I just went back to my normal spot and chilled all night and just tried to recoup and rest a little bit. So getting started here this morning. It's Monday morning. So the day started out pretty interesting. The Open, the Classic, the amateur, semi-professional athletes, whatever you want to call it. I should probably figure out the official term for it, but it's the Shaw Classic Open. They had 4 different categories, 2 women and 2 men. The men's were lightweight and heavyweight, and the women's were lightweight, and I think they called the heavyweights Open or something. Like, they didn't call it heavyweights. I guess maybe that's offensive to women or something, but either way, saw the last 2 events for each of those groups, which was pretty interesting. It was kind of neat. They had deadlifts for max reps, which was pretty impressive, and then they finished it off with Atlas Stone Run. Same platform height, I think it was 50 inches, 5 different weights. They all tend to increase 25 pounds until you got to the heavyweight men's. And it was a pretty close race for the heavyweight men. It was between Ben Glasscock and Zach. I forget Zach's last name. They were a point or 2 within each other, and the last 2 events didn't separate them. He got really close to the end. Ben could not finish the 5th stone, so it got close. He got 4 stones, and I think there was 3 or 4 other men that got 4 stones, so it depended on how quickly he got them versus those other guys to figure out how many points he lost to Zach. And I think he just barely got it. He barely got it. He seemed to know it pretty quickly afterwards, because he figured, I think, I'll have to go back and look at the numbers, but I believe if he had gotten last out of the people with the 4 stones, there was 1 extra spot that could have gotten in between him to bump him too far down in the podium. So I figured he was thinking, had he gotten even last out of the 4 stones, he would have still won by a point, and that's kind of what happened. That's how it played out. So what that means is Ben gets an automatic bid, an automatic invite to next year's Strongest Man on Earth. Just like Josh Spurgeon last year and other guys the year before him, the winner of the heavyweight men's group gets a automatic invite. And that's pretty neat, especially for those dudes. Ben's kind of interesting. He competed in the Giants Live just a few weeks ago over in England, Royal Albert Hall, and he did okay. So that was pretty interesting that he got pushed by this guy named Zach. So I'll be curious about Zach and look into him a little bit. If I remember right, I think Alec was coaching him, the guy that works with Lucas Hatton. So I wonder if he's up from the Pacific Northwest. There's things I'll dig into later. And then after that, I checked out the expo real quick. Ran into Robert Oberst. That was really cool. Being able to see him. He's probably one of my all-time favorite when I was growing up. I remember back in 2016 at the World's Strongest Man in Botswana, they did these intros like they do on football games. Where like, so-and-so, Alberta College, so-and-so, Arizona State. And he'd go like, Robert Oberst, the United States of America. He's like, I've always wanted to say that. And it was the coolest thing ever. And I loved him ever since. Actually, I was really disappointed that year he tore his bicep. I think it was pretty early on he tore his bicep too, so I was really disappointing for him. But he's a giant of a man. It's funny, I think he's only like 6'7", but so he's technically shorter than some of these other guys. But to me, physically, his presence, he looked like the biggest dude in the entire event. And it's probably just because of the beard and his body, the way his upper body's shaped. I'm not sure, but he's physically imposing. If he's in the building, everybody notices him. But anyway, I got to chat with him for a little bit. He's just as funny as he portrays himself. He had an arm wrestling match on Friday night. Get my days mixed up. and he had that problem where he felt something a little bit weird in his tendon when he was arm wrestling Eddie, and it looked like he was giving Eddie a run for his money, but he did a smart thing by pulling out. Anyway, then I went and grabbed some lunch. When I got into lunch, Jerry Pritchard got in line behind me, and of course then his son Bubba Pritchard, who, like a lot of dudes at the gym and people that are in these, like, you know, bodybuilding forums, they'll send this little clip around of his son. The kid's 14 years old and he's deadlifting 600 pounds. 14 years old and he's deadlifting 600 pounds. I have a picture with him and Jerry. I'm not going to probably post that to someone on the road, but he's bigger than me. 14 years old. This kid's going to be setting records. He's going to be a name that's going to be well known. I know Jerry Pritchard from growing up. He was an American strongman from Arizona. He lived in Phoenix. So, I mean, I remember seeing him late night on TV growing up when I was younger. He's an extreme deadlifter in his own right as a strongman. And so, yeah, his son's got some pretty good genes, and he's going to be doing some things. So I had a chance to talk with him for about 2 or 3 minutes. Going to stop at lunch. Jerry's a busy dude because he was volunteering on the open side, the classic, for all the amateurs and refereeing, judging, stuff like that, among other things. So that was really cool to be able to bump into him. And then so I go back, and here's the last day of the Strongest Man on Earth 2. And there was 4 events. Started out with a trap bar deadlift. Now I will say, so I had a VIP ticket, so I was sitting on the floor, which is pretty awesome for most of the whole event, because you're right there, right next to the athletes, right next to everything that's going on. And the problem with the trap bar deadlift is there's so many people filming it. I think the local crew had 2 for the pay-per-view and the screen in the audio arena, and then there was another guy. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was Braden from Lucas Hatton's group. And then occasionally there was 2 other people, you know, taking photos, and they all decided to stand on one side. So, you know, the deadlifts here, they're all here, and I'm sitting here. I'd say more than half of the deadlifts I had to look up at the screen. It would have been like staying at home watching the pay-per-view, but it was still cool to be there. That was an interesting event. There was some technical difficulties on the last 3 events. Actually, all 3 kind of had some problems. But it was still a great event. So then they did which one was right after that? That was the yoke carry, which they had yeah, because then they did the frame. No, I'm missing one. They did the frame carry, where Trey Mitchell struggled and couldn't get it going. Hope the car slows down here. Okay, good. Sorry, I got the full self-drive on. Traffic was slowing down. And so he had problems, but a lot of people had problems on the right lane, especially with the left handle. And Shane Flowers tore his callus on it, but he was, you know, trying to figure out what was going on. And the next, I think, 3 or 4 guys that used it couldn't finish, and they all had the same problem on the left side. I had a chance to talk with Shane Flowers after the event on the meet and greet, and he said that Eddie Williams, the guy before him, had put a lot of chalk on it. I mean, hey, they can do whatever they want. But it was so much chalk that there was no knurling, no gripping, no grooves, basically. So he was having problems gripping onto it. And then when they cleaned it off and brushed it off, the crew had used some kind of cleaner that basically made it slick, kind of a little bit less, where basically if you were chalking it up, it wasn't going to be able to give you a really good grip. And a lot of dudes had problems with that. A lot of them had mentioned it too. I'm kind of surprised they didn't like switch out that implement maybe with one of the ones in the back, because the ones in the back is the same exact as the ones in the front that they can try out and test before they come out. That probably would have been a good idea, but nobody made enough complaints early on, so that was unfortunate. But that was a pretty neat event into the arm over arm, and then, you know, we got to pull up this huge contraption. I think the spectacle of pulling up a car or something big would have been cooler than what they did. They used some kind of like piping or machinery from like oil fields, which was kind of the theme. So it was heavy, but it didn't look that impressive, and it, you know, partially because I was also far away at that point. And then after that was the yoke carry, where they had 2 safes. That looked pretty neat. Again, technical difficulties though. They had a problem at the end where when you cross the line, there was some lasers that were like getting the times perfectly, but the lasers were at the top of the yoke, so we're talking like 6 or 7 feet in the air. Yet the way that the athlete was going to be considered finished for that 30-yard run was when the bottom of the center of the contraption past that line. Not the front like a lot of other carries, the middle, and not the top where they were actually doing the laser, but the bottom. So what was really weird is there was a couple times where some dudes were, and this is heavy, I think the first one was 1,217 pounds, the lightweight, just to qualify for the last round. And when they would stop thinking they made it, the front would move forward and trigger that sensor thinking it was off, but then the center line hadn't been crossed on the bottom. So I think one or two dudes actually had to pick it up and move it an extra foot, which ended up not being a problem, I believe, on timing. I don't think time was a factor to bump, so I don't think it mattered in the end, but it could have been a little bit disastrous, and it took a little time for them to refigure out how to do that. They put some new tape down, so they'll learn from that a little bit, I'm sure. And then I am mixing it up. There was the I got one of the events mixed up, I think. There was the standing chest press. So that was the second to last one. And that's a neat contraption where you see the barrels, the kegs come down in an S shape. And so first they bench press standing up once empty, then a barrel comes down, they push again, second barrel comes down, they push again, all the way to 8 barrels. And then if you get the 8th barrel and put a rep out, which to date before this event, only 2 people have ever done, Brian Shaw, and he did it for 2 reps, and Tom Evans was the only other dude to do all 8. Well, they had some problems on this one where the second and third barrel had come out at the same time, twice in a row. And it looked pretty clear that the spring that was stopping the next barrel from coming wasn't going up fast enough or hard enough to stop the barrel. And it happened twice in a row, and unfortunately kind of those athletes had to either like start over and do it right then, or go back and wait and do it again, because otherwise they'd have a break in between, which would have been a little unfair. To their credit, they stopped. This is unfortunate, it took 5 or 10 minutes, but they figured it out, put a weight on it, so the spring had a counterweight that forced it to go up a little bit quicker. Didn't have a problem after that, so it worked out quite well. That was pretty neat. Quite a few people actually finished the 8th one and repped it out a few. My boy Lucas Hatton finished day 1 in 7th place, which was unfortunate. We didn't expect him to have a great second or third event, but he really did poorly and got all the way down to 7th. But after the chest press, my car literally just cut off somebody. Sorry, buddy. Lucas caught up on a few of these events, especially the standing chest press. He got to 8, and if I remember right, he did 3 reps. 3 reps, and he got all the way up into first place by... Actually, for the standing chest press, before that started, there was 4 people within half a point of each other. Lucas jumped up front, and I think he was ahead by 1 point over Evan Singleton. So that meant that those 2 would be going on the last one for the stairs. And pretty much whoever won that, depending on timing, if somebody didn't finish or didn't finish quick enough, you know, basically the winner of that was going to be the winner of the whole event. And that's how it played out. Lucas and Evan Singleton finished the event, which was a front carry into the power stairs, and Evan was on a mission. He was not going to be stopped. He was not going to be stopped, and he sure as heck he wasn't. All right, so that's how it ended up. That was pretty neat. Having the VIP floor pass, I got to do the meet and greet afterwards, which took a few hours, and it's understandable too, because a lot of the guys, you know, I mean, that's one of the heaviest events. It is the heaviest event that any of the strongmen do, and so they're exhausted, they're tired. Some of them didn't come up right away because they're shoveling food in their face so they can try to get some energy back, you know, and recover and start their recovery process legitimately, as opposed to standing there for 2-3 hours talking to fans when none of us really had anything important to say anyway. So I got, you know, last few pictures, got some meet and greets, got to, you know, meet some people that I didn't get a chance to in the expo and whatnot. Chatted with a few of them. Definitely have some new favorites. Some guys I'm probably a little bit less inclined to want to support as strong as I am. I mean, they're all respectful, but some of them are definitely not, I don't know, there for the fan interaction. But again, I don't blame them. I mean, they're there to compete. So temper that. Don't blow me up in the comments just because I think some of them don't, you know, want to hang out with the fans. That does not bother me. But you have this perception of certain strongmen, and then when you meet them in real life, it's pretty cool to see how they are, you know, normally. And there's a couple dudes that are just legitimately the same as they are on any kind of podcast, show, interview, everything, like Robert Oberst. I mean, he is through and through that guy. So if you've ever seen him, he is that guy. And that was pretty cool. All right, that was a long day. I had had an early start, didn't really get any breaks. I didn't eat after I got into the arena, and so I got really dehydrated and exhausted towards the end of the meet and greet. So I actually skipped a couple of the meet and greets just to get out of there a little bit earlier, and as soon as I got a chance to meet Evan Singleton, I was out, and I went to my spot to go sleep. I've never been that tired in I don't know, probably all year. So anyway, that's a wrap. My whole summary of this is kind of interesting. As I'm driving home, I'm like thinking, would I go again? And as exciting as the whole event was, I'm a little surprised. I don't know that I would come back. And it feels weird to say that, to think that, considering how cool the event was. I think I might actually enjoy going to a different event if I go. More so than this one. Even if this is kind of, in my mind, the pinnacle. Probably one of the best fan experiences from my understanding. I don't have that fire to I can't wait till next year. I can. I mean, timing wise, I'd like to see it again, but I don't know. I'm less than 50-50 on that, which is interesting. Maybe my mind will change by the end of the drive, maybe just because I'm exhausted and I got this trip home. It's kind of weird, but I go to some of these other events, like the Bitcoin conference. I left the first one thinking, I'm coming back. I went to the second one, I'm buying a ticket right away for next year. I'm coming back. And this, I don't have that same burning desire. Maybe if I was stronger, bigger, and could not look so small next to these guys, maybe that would change my mind. I don't know. I got some work to do before next year, though, that's for sure. Yeah, follow along in the journey. I got my little Gym and Bitcoin podcast going on, so I got my arms have never felt smaller in front of these dudes, so that's one thing I got to work on next. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to sign off. If you watch all this, it's probably because you know me, but if not, and you were there, let me know what you thought of it. Let me know where I was wrong. Tell me that I'm an idiot for not wanting to come back. Met a lot of cool people too, so I'll see them on some other events if I go out to OSG or Arnold's or maybe even Mr. Olympia. They got some strongman stuff going on there. Anyway, I'm going to finish my drive home. See you guys on the next one.